How do you think COVID ends? It's in a diner and then black screen. You woke up this morning. It doesn't. It will just become a part of life. Just like the flu and common cold. I think when people talk about COVID ending they more mean the constant barrage of its effects on everyone's lives, not so much the eradication of the virus. We find mildly racist tweets that it posted in 2012 and it gets cancelled and disappears forever. Covered 2012. It gets cancelled midway through season 6. 6 seasons and a movie. Honestly I kinda hope it just flicks off. Honestly I kinda hope we all die and I get a good night's sleep. Not with a bang but with a whimper. I used to bang but now I whimper. We find out that we were all really dead the whole time. Plot twist. We have been since Harambe. I think it'll mutate to a point where it'll be crazy spreadable, but less likely to kill and hospitalize, and then we'll treat it like the flu. So Omicron, 19, are technical the truth. I will catch feelings for it and it will disappear instantly. Well, eventually the sun will explode. Not before the sun loses its taste buds to COVID. The year is 2027. COVID-19 Omega variant has reduced human population by 97%. Population density is so low the virus can no longer spread. Bright side. Global warming is solved. Hopefully better than Game of Thrones. I done want it. With thunderous applause. Ah, there it is. I was looking for this comment. Mrs. Peacock in the library with a candlestick. It will not end. It will become endemic. Meaning it's going to stay. We might have to get a vaccine every year. Like a flu shot. But it will be under control. I would love for it to be like the flu. It starts with an earthquake. Birds, snakes and aeroplanes. And Lenny Bruce is not afraid. It turns into a mild seasonal cold that you get every year. It becomes like the seasonal flu, mutating every year, but we'll have developed enough of a resistance to it that it won't really be that big of a deal. Vaccinated people can still catch and spread COVID. So even if 100% of the population was vaccinated, the virus would still present new variants and people would still catch and spread it. But after enough time we'll evolve to better fight it off and it'll be no different than a cold or flu going around. Instead of cold flu season it'll be the cold flu COVID season. That's my prediction based on my limited understanding of infectious disease at least. There would have some precedents. The seasonal flu evolved from the Spanish flu, and one of the common cold viruses is thought to have evolved from the Russian flu in 1890 or so. Damn. I was hoping for some hopeful comments, but now I regret reading this thread. Maybe opting out doesn't seem so bad after all, given the alternative. Remember that people tend to be more cynical online. It's freaking rough times for sure, but you are more likely to hear about a murder than someone giving bags of food to homeless beggars. The day we are truly fricked is when good news becomes the sensational headlines that bad news currently is. With a D. This guys gets it. Unless you were able to predict COVID happening. I don't trust your opinion on how it will end. I'm expecting the unexpected at this point. Anything after 2016 feels like a poorly written soap opera about Earth. In an exhausting CGI battle. Followed by a beautiful shot of Fauci played by DiCaprio going home to his kids. Then, midway through the credits is a scene in lab somewhere. With a vial labeled COVID-23. The virus? It won't. The mandates? 2024. Probably. Nah. End of 2022 they're all gone. It will become endemic. And years down the road we will find out what the horrors of long-term effects are for some people. It will be quite nasty, but we will get used to it and it will become part of life. Some studies will probably come out in decades about how many years of life expectancy it cost. No one will give a damn though. Forgotten about when WW3 kicks off. Rambo shows up and kills it. Like the flu. Zombies. When people stop giving it power. It's a virus. We learn to live with it as it will be around forever and we continue with our lives. Those who want to vax do and those who don't. We don't shut our economy over it. We don't push kids, or adults, into mental illness, drugs, and suicide because we're scared. We accept it as a reality of life and we focus on a healthy lifestyle and proper hygiene. Push kids to suicide because we're scared? What is that? In 2 weeks done. Our bodies, collectively, whether vaxxed or not, are gaining knowledge of this virus. 2 years ago, the entire population was 100% immune naive. hence the major sickness and death. The more infection and variants that circulate through the populace, and once we've all caught a number of them, the more effectively our T cells will evolve and be on the ready. Evolution in large animals requires multiple generations, usually millions of years in the absence of strong selection pressures. You are describing population level immunity shift. Until one strain becomes so common spread everyone gets it and, unvaccinated or not, we all build immunity until it becomes endemic. Human extinction, I support the jobs the asteroid will bring, won't end until politicians and big corporations stop making money off it. He's right, yeah, no. We suck up our titties, go outside without a mask and build up antibodies. Aliens come down and destroy everything. I mean, the writers are already jumping the shark pretty badly. Might as well go full stupid with the series finale. I just hope people start realizing it's more like the flu and not the most dangerous disease in the world, and we can start handling it like the flu. Imho, I feel like COVID is going to be milked as long as Rockstar has been milking GTA V Online. It doesn't end. Just like the influenza epidemic of 1918 to 1919, the flu stuck around and became a seasonal occurrence. Over time, through vaccination, it will diminish in severity. The problem with natural immunity is the fact that it means it continues to be in the populace and continues to spread by one sick person infecting at least one or more people. We need to get over the idea of going back to normal. COVID, as an endemic disease, is the new normal. With thunderous applause, I think most likely it'll be like the flu. Annual shot for the current variants and a non-issue even if people are getting sick. What will be interesting to see is how the neurological and any long-lasting side effects of the virus manifest over time among the vaccinated. I'm triple vaxxed and already had it during the alpha wave, so if I get it again I'm not at all concerned for my health. What I am concerned about is the potential for long COVID, as we still don't really know much about who experiences it and what the long-term ramifications are. Hopefully, with a whole lot less crazies than it started with. It doesn't. Mainstream media stops reporting about it. That's how COVID right now is barely worth mentioning. They could give us the numbers on deaths from cancer and heart disease every day instead. The Sigma variant. It doesn't. With humanity. On the 9th of March 2023, it'd like an extension, as that date doesn't work for me. It will evolve in an endemic and we will have to deal with flu, cold and COVID. It won't go away, friend. COVID ends when society stops paying it any attention and moves on to living normally again. This does not mean it goes away, it just means society moved on. I'm double vaxxed, boosted, and probably had it. Couldn't get a PCR test. And I mean this with all my heart. Who cares? It'll be like the flu and it will always be an epidemic. People stop caring and the mandates just become symbolic. People with good immune systems carry on as normal, and people who are actually scared of COVID eventually pay for vaccines themselves, because I doubt the government is willing to go through that song and dance forever. And like diabetics, they pay for a subscription to living. It's never going to end. Not when it's making the rich so much money. Easy. We treat it like any other virus. It's an airborne illness. It'll never leave us. Put down the phone, turn off the TV. I think what will happen is that it will eventually mutate to the point where it's non-lethal but will still have occasional spikes and outbreaks of variants throughout the next 30 years. There'll be a point when we think of it as nothing different than a common flu. And then out of nowhere 10 years from now there'll be like the Megatron variant and it'll kill a ton of people, but nothing on the scale of the original COVID. COVID 2 cliffhanger. It's over. There is a lobby trying to prolong it and succeeding due to people's insecurities. It doesn't. It's becoming endemic. We'll have it forever now. Like colds and flu. It becomes one of the good guys Dragon Ball Z style. It doesn't. It's a new flu. 40 years from now it'll end. Didn't you watch South Park? It doesn't. This is all BS. It doesn't. A new vertical has been identified and they will push and push and push to keep the money flowing. It turns out that if we had just listened to Trump and grabbed them by the pussy, none of this would have happened. I'm afraid that it never will, because COVID has become a personality trait in so many people's lives. They have completely changed their way of life. Dressing in a hazmat suit to hug their grandma, wearing 7-layered masks in their car, etc. And it has made them feel like heroes sacrificing their way of life for the common good. They can't go back. Plus, When COVID evolves into just another cold, as Omicron seems to have done, they can take off the masks because someone might think they're one of those deplorable anti-maskers. The masks have become a symbol of us versus them, and sadly I don't think that's going to change. It don't. Well, I don't think it's going great currently. Can't imagine it's going to get better. Chuck Norris tears cure COVID. Too bad hell never cry. With a whimper. It basically will become like the seasonal flu. It's not gonna go away, but it'll die down. The same way the cold ends. It doesn't. With people saying frick it and just living their life as normal instead of being driven by fear. In the past with COVID we've seen decent immunity protections that can last many months from reinfection. And add vaccinations on top of infection. One had substantial protection. My concern is since Omicron hasn't been around that long, we haven't had the time to collect data yet that shows the length of time one can get Omicron and then get reinfected with Omicron. Right now, all I've seen is anecdotal. People catching COVID twice over these 3 months. Could be tail end Delta then Omicron, though, because up until this point, I had never even heard of one person catching COVID and getting reinfected within a 6-month window. So, we know Omicron is quicker to reinfect than previous strains and more stealthy. Our vaccines are less effective in avoiding it, but help with severity of symptoms drastically. Is Omicron the strain mutated to be superior in quick reinfection of itself? And in the US, Omicron has a whole playground of hosts. Vaccinated people who've checked out and could care less about actions to avoid infection because they've done everything right for 2 years and are being forced to work sick with COVID. I get the frustration. The argument is, in being forced to work while sick, the government doesn't care. Without any help from my employer to protect me, I'm vaccinated and boosted. Why can't I go to the bar after work? Have heard this argument echoed from doctors, from nurses, from teachers, from essential professionals, and unvaccinated people who never really cared to begin with. My personal favorite fricked up description of COVID was from my ex-boss. COVID is just a strain of the original cold. You know COVID-1. There was COVID-1, COVID-2, COVID-3. She continued to count until 19. We're just at COVID cold 19 now. There were 18 other COVIDs before this and we were fine. We have a government and businesses who would rather you come to work sick than offer incentives to keep individuals at home while sick, and will swiftly fire you if you do not come in, or are out sick for too long. We've created the perfect storm for Omicron, the perfect incubation tank of 300 or so million people partying like it's 2018. Some still wearing masks, so that's good. Yup, us Americans have time traveled to Copeland, USA. Circa 2018. Our society as a whole has completely forgotten, is in collective denial. There's a potentially deadly life-altering disease eating up the country. Short Omicron reinfection windows of 3 months or less is thing that could really keep this rolling, with continuing spikes and steep dips, especially if it's just running rampant, with incredible opportunities, and perfect pockets, to mutate into versions we need to be attempting to avoid. My hope is that Omicron offers at least 6 months of reinfection protection. This buys us some time for vaccination improvements and other partial medicines that can shield from future strains. Because it's obvious in America that profits for businesses and CEOs are more important than individuals' wellness and health of mind and body. It makes sense though. Corporations are the leaders shaping our whole legislation at this point. Men are not offering living wages for their employees. So why would our corporate-sponsored politicians want us to have our own money, or individual stimulus checks, if we all had some monetary safety net provided by our government, like the ones offered in forgivable PPP loans to businesses, that we as people had accumulated over these past 2 years? How would they have forced us back to work once we got to the frick it, let it rip page of the pandemic playbook? For the people who have been out there doing their best to protect themselves and others throughout this whole thing, my deepest thanks to you. There are many of us, healthy and young, who are the sole caregivers for the vulnerable, high-risk people we love, and we need all the help we can get. I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. It don't. The liberals keep us like this forever. It already has ended. The effects of COVID bad government policy will end whenever the government decides they will end. or when a majority of people have collectively decided to stop listening to the government.